Have you ever looked into a woman's eyes in the moments after intimacy and seen a universe of emotion you couldn't quite name? A vulnerability so profound it feels like she's let you walk into a room of her soul that she shows no one else. You might think you understand what just happened, but on a psychological level, you've triggered something far deeper than physical sensation. You've just spoken to her subconscious in a language older than words. And if you don't understand that language, you will forever miss the meaning of her silent response. Let's sit with the first truth, because it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. We call it the biochemistry of bonding, and it begins the moment your body makes its claim on hers. You see, a woman's body is not just flesh and bone. It is a finely tuned chemical laboratory, and you have just become its lead chemist. When you release inside her, her brain is flooded with a neurotransmitter called oxytocin. You might have heard it called the love hormone, but in the world of behavioral psychology, we understand it as something far more potent. It is nature's most powerful bonding agent, a biological superglue for the human heart. To understand what she feels, you have to understand what oxytocin actually does. This is the same chemical that surges through a mother during childbirth, and again when she breastfeeds, creating that unbreakable instinctual bond with her child. In the context of intimacy, it operates with the same primal force. It is her brain's way of saying this connection matters, protect it, trust it. In those moments after her critical analytical mind softens and a deep subconscious drive takes over. It is not a choice the biochemistry of bonding, the oxytocin flood explained makes. It is a chemical command to attach to you. Think of a real-life situation you might recognize. Have you ever seen a woman who, after becoming physically intimate with a man, suddenly seems to care more, to want more of his time, to become more emotionally invested, even if things were casual before? People often misread this as a woman being clingy or catching feelings out of nowhere. But psychology reveals the truth. Her body has initiated a bonding protocol. She is not being irrational. She is being biological. Her entire system is now calibrated to see you as a source of safety and security. She is experiencing a pull toward you that is deeper than conscious thought. It is the echo of millions of years of evolution, whispering that where you go, her sense of peace and protection should follow. This is the flood she feels. It is overwhelming. It is profound, and it is utterly beyond her control. Building on that chemical flood, we arrive at something even more psychologically profound, the act of primal surrender. You have to understand that for a woman to allow you to finish inside her, she must, on a level beneath conscious thought, surrender her autonomy to you in that moment. This is not weakness. This is the ultimate expression of trust, a vulnerability so deep that it bypasses the modern mind entirely and taps directly into our ancestral blueprint. In psychological terms, we are talking about the complete dismantling of her protective barriers, the walls she spends her entire life building to navigate a world that often asks her to be guarded. To grasp what this feels like, consider how a woman moves through daily life. She locks her car doors at night. She clutches her keys a certain way, walking to her car. She maintains the primal surrender. Why vulnerability is the ultimate gift. Careful distance from strangers. She is conditioned by experience and by evolution to protect herself, to remain in control of her personal space. Now contrast that with the moment you are inside her and you release. In that split second, she is surrendering all of that control. She is making herself physically and emotionally defenseless. Before you. Her subconscious mind is making a high-stakes gamble. A gamble that says, I trust this man with my safety. I trust him with my future. I trust him not to harm me in my most vulnerable state. This is why the moments immediately following are so psychologically charged. Her unconscious mind is now scanning you, reading your every micro-expression, your every touch, your every word. It is asking a single desperate question. Was my trust well placed? If you hold her, if your touch remains gentle, if your presence communicates safety, her psyche records this as a profound emotional victory. She has found a sanctuary in you. But if you pull away, if you become distant or cold, it does not just hurt her feelings. It registers as a primal betrayal. It confirms a deep-seated fear that vulnerability leads to abandonment. She feels on a cellular level that she gave you everything and you left her alone with it. That is not sadness. That is a psychological wound. This brings us to a concept in psychology that explains why this moment never truly fades from a woman's memory. It is called the somatic marker hypothesis, and it reveals that you are not just participating in an experience, you are etching yourself into her emotional DNA. A somatic marker is essentially a bookmark that her brain creates whenever she experiences something deeply emotional, intensely physical, or profoundly vulnerable. It is the somatic marker, how you become part of her emotional memory, her mind's way of tagging that memory with a feeling, a bodily sensation, a visceral response that will resurface whenever she encounters anything even remotely connected to that moment. And this act, this release, is one of the most powerful somatic markers a woman will ever encode. Think about how memory actually works. You might remember what you had for lunch last Tuesday because it was mundane, uneventful, but you will never forget the first time someone broke your heart. Why? Because the emotional intensity of that moment created a somatic marker. Your brain linked the event with the physical sensation of your chest tightening, your stomach dropping, the tears burning behind your eyes. Now apply that to this. In the moments after you release inside her, her senses are heightened to an almost unbearable degree. Your scent is on her skin. The sound of your breathing fills the room. The weight of your body, the warmth of your touch, the tone of your voice. It is all being recorded and filed away, not just as a memory, but as an emotional reference point. This is where your responsibility becomes undeniable. The way you treat her in that sacred space, the words you speak or fail to speak, the gentleness or coldness of your presence, it all becomes part of that somatic marker. She will not just remember that you were there. Her body will remember how you made her feel. Years later, a certain cologne on a stranger's skin, a particular song playing softly, the specific quality of light in a room at dusk, and she will be transported back. She will feel a flicker of that same vulnerability, that same safety, or that same abandonment all over again. You are not just a participant in her present. You are becoming a permanent fixture in the secure base test, what she's looking for. After intimacy, her emotional future, you are writing your name into the fabric of her psyche with an ink that never fully fades. This leads us directly into one of the most well-researched concepts in attachment psychology, and it explains everything about what she does next. It is called the secure base theory, and it reveals that this moment is not an ending, but a test. The ultimate test of whether you are someone she can truly rely on. Psychologists have long understood that human beings from infancy through adulthood need what we call a secure base, a person to whom they can return for comfort, safety, and emotional reassurance when the world becomes overwhelming. Think of a toddler exploring a playground. She will wander, she will climb, she will take risks, but every few minutes her eyes will dart back to her mother. She needs to see that her mother is still there, still watching, still present. That visual confirmation is what gives her the courage to keep exploring. Now translate that directly into the moments after intimacy. A woman has just undergone an experience of profound vulnerability. She has surrendered. She has bonded chemically. And she has opened herself to you on every possible level. And now her unconscious mind, that ancient survival mechanism, immediately begins scanning for one thing. Are you still there? Are you still present? Are you still safe? This is not conscious manipulation or neediness. This is her attachment system running a diagnostic check. Her behavior in these moments, whether she curls into your chest, holds you tighter, seeks eye contact, or conversely pulls away and becomes quiet, is a direct response to the cues you are giving her. If you remain present, If your hand traces gentle patterns on her skin, if you hold her without distraction, if your energy communicates the narrative of worth, how she defines her value through you, that you have nowhere else to be and no one else you would rather be with, you pass the test. You become her secure base. Her brain receives the confirmation it was searching for, and her attachment to you deepens in ways she may never put into words. But if you withdraw, if you reach for your phone, if you create physical distance, if your energy shifts toward leaving, you fail that test catastrophically. You have just confirmed her deepest fear, that her vulnerability has driven you away. And that wound, that sense of having her secure base pulled out from under her, is not something she will simply get over. It becomes a fracture in her ability to trust not just you, but potentially anyone who comes after you. And this brings us to perhaps the most psychologically delicate layer of all, the narrative of worth and desire that gets written in the aftermath of this moment. You have to understand that a woman does not experience this act in isolation. She experiences it through the lens of everything society has taught her, everything past lovers have communicated, and everything her own insecurities whisper in the dark. In that moment of release, her mind begins constructing a story about what she means to you, and by extension, a story about her own value. This is where psychology and culture collide in ways that can either elevate her spirit or quietly crush it. Consider the weight of being chosen. For her entire life, directly and indirectly, messages have been absorbed about desirability, about being enough, about being worthy of a man's commitment and passion. When you release inside her, her subconscious immediately interrogates the meaning. Was that an act of loving connection, a passionate claiming, a mutual surrender? Or was she simply a destination, a warm, the phantom limb of possibility, hope, fear, and the future space for your physical release? She will feel the difference with an accuracy that defies logic. She will read it in the way you look at her afterward, in the presence or absence of tenderness, in whether you see her or simply see yourself. This is the psychological reality. If your energy communicates reverence, if your touch says, "I want you," not just your body, if she feels seen and cherished in that raw vulnerability, then her internal narrative becomes one of affirmation. She feels beautiful. She feels powerful. She feels deeply fundamentally valuable. But if your energy shifts to transaction, if the warmth drains from your eyes, if she senses she has served her purpose, then the story turns dark. She does not just feel used, she feels diminished at the core of her being. She questions what she lacked, what she failed to be, why her surrender was not enough to make you stay present. And that question, once planted, can poison her sense of self for years to come. You are not just giving her pleasure or taking your own. You are helping her write the story she will tell herself about her own worth. And finally, we arrive at the sixth truth, the one that lingers in the air like an unspoken question long after the moment has passed. It is what we might call the phantom limb of possibility, the psychological weight of potential that this act carries with it. You see, regardless of intention, regardless of protection, regardless of whether a child is actually conceived, the act of a man releasing inside a woman is intrinsically linked in the human psyche to the concept of creation. It taps. Conclusion. The power you hold and the choice you must make directly into the most primal understanding of what this union is designed to do. To make something new, to create life, to forge a future. In those moments after, her mind does something remarkable and often terrifying. It projects. She is lying there, heart pounding, skin tingling, chemicals flooding her system, and her consciousness begins to run scenarios. What if? What would that child look like? What would it feel like to carry your baby? What would our lives become? She is not necessarily doing this consciously or deliberately. It is a deep, ancient part of her brain evaluating the consequences of what just happened, weighing the potential that now exists where it did not exist an hour ago. This is the phantom limb, the presence of something that is not there, but could be. the ghost of a future that now feels more tangible, more possible. This is why you will sometimes see a woman become distant or contemplative after intimacy. Even when everything was beautiful and connected, she is not pulling away from you. She is grappling with the enormity of what your union represents. She is feeling the weight of potential legacy, of family, of permanence. And in that moment of profound gravity, her unconscious mind looks to you. It searches your face for any sign that you feel it too, that you understand the magnitude of what has passed between you, that you are not casually walking away from something that felt to her like the doorway to everything. She is standing at the edge of possibility, and she is waiting to see if you will stand there with her, or if you will leave her to face the weight of that potential alone.